What's the cringiest thing you've seen a bride and groom do for their wedding? 1. I'm in the wedding industry. I've been to over 3,000 weddings. The singing your vows thing is never going to work out like you think it will. Never sing your vows. Never attempt to sing any part of your wedding. It will not go as you visualize it. A wedding day is not a good time for surprises. Don't surprise your bride with an unexpected part of the ceremony. Don't surprise your mom by the wedding itself. A true story. The bride told her mom she was going to an engagement dinner. The only exception to this rule is if you give the bride a surprise addition to her ring, grandma's diamond, a ring made from her parents' rings, etc. Intimacy jokes later are never funny. They make people uncomfortable, and it makes you look like an adolescent. There will always be crickets after you make the joke. If you are going to be late, communicate that to everyone somehow. Have your parents, or someone tell everyone you will be late. The staff needs to know, especially. If you forget the rings, don't stress it. It's a funny story. Suppose you forget your vows, wing it as best you can. Ask the officiant for help with last-minute vows. Finally, don't get intoxicated and be in butt. You don't want to be that guy. Plus, if you are intoxicated, you won't be able to have intimacy later. 2. At my cousin's wedding, they did the thing where the groom removed the bride's garter and tosses it to all the single guys. None of the guys wanted to be next to be married, because once the groom tossed the garter, no one grabbed it. It just landed on the ground a few feet before a crowd of motionless guys. The groom tossed the garter 3 times before one guy half-heartedly picked it off the ground. The bride wouldn't look at any of those guys for the rest of the night. 3. My uncle not only brought up his daughter's ex-boyfriend in his speech but talked about their toxic relationship for a solid 5 minutes. I highly recommend preparing a speech before talking in front of a room full of people. 4. Not the couple. The pastor kept saying, "Our Heavenly Father, Daddy God," while marrying them. 5. Oh, let's groom change who his best man was and didn't tell the original BM until the start of the ceremony. Bride and groom asked a guest to bartend the reception at the reception. Groom dirty danced with his stepmom full hands on ass. Bride and groom hauled their wedding party up to do a choreographed dance to Meatloaf's Paradise by the dashboard lights but didn't give them any pre-warning or teach them the dance. That song is 8.5 minutes long. The wedding was at a scenic boarding school campus during the summer. Guests were told dormitories were complimentary to stay in. Guests were not told there would be no bedding provided or AC in the building. The groom later emailed everyone who stayed in a dorm asking for money. The same bride and groom chose another friend's wedding reception as the right setting to yell at a third pair of mutual friends for not including them in their wedding party. 6. Requiring every attendee to bring a date because she didn't want sad, lonely people on her day. Not my friends luckily but pretended to be a friend's date because she really wanted to see her cousin get married. 7. At the reception, the groom and his groomsmen sang a god-awful a cappella version of Stand By Me. The worst part was he wasn't even singing it to his wife. He was singing it to his mom. Oh darling, darling, stand by me. Chinese weddings, man. 8. I dated a girl in my 20s and went to her friend's wedding in upstate New York. In the middle of the service, the minister's cell phone rang. He answered. It was God. God wanted to talk to the groom. The conversation lasted a couple of minutes, and then the ceremony continued. 9. The minister used to date the bride and gushed about how wonderful she was. He told the groom if he ever died, not to worry, he'd take care of her. I was shell-shocked. I so wished I could think of a reason to ask the couple for a copy of the video of their wedding, but I couldn't quite find a legitimate one. 10. I wasn't a guest, I was working at the wedding. The bride got drunk and sat on some other dude's lap for 2 hours and flirted with him while the groom sat by himself at the head table with a defeated look on his face. 11. It was not a wedding but an engagement ceremony. In front of about 300 people, they reenacted a scene from an old romantic film about 2 lovers in the 1800s. 12. They sang their vows to each other. Neither had a singing voice. Vows were generally bat poop crazy, like submissive in the bedroom and not asking about where she was going. The auto-tune microphones were a terrible idea. Their vow songs shared a chorus and it was awful, and they expected the guests to sing along with the chorus. The vows singing lasted 20 minutes. Pure cringe. 13. It's a tie between my sister breaking her knee, seriously, at her own wedding dancing to the Cotton Eye Joe and my stepsister having her reception at an honest-to-God truck stop while 6 months pregnant. In her defense, the food was good, but wow, was it weird walking through a gas station in formal wear? 14. At the beginning of the reception, we all had to stand up and sing the national anthem. To be clear, this was in another country I'd never been to a wedding in before, so I thought, okay, maybe this is just a tradition I've never heard of before here. Then I told this to other people, and they were all like, no, that's just really weird. Also, at that wedding, the groom's father ended his speech with what I'm sure he thought was an amazing joke on how it's easier to build a bridge to Hawaii than to understand what a woman is thinking. It would have been awkward enough had the man not been standing between his ex and current wife as he delivered it. 15. The bride entered to Braveheart soundtrack blasting on a boom box. Civil service that lasted a few minutes. Starting at around 1 p.m. She leaves to the same blasting Braveheart soundtrack. The mother announces that the reception starts at 5:30 p.m. There is no food and no bar, but trays of dessert bars will be served. We are also told the venue is locked until then, so there is no place to wait. My girlfriend and I leave with a crowd of people to across the street to an Irish pub for drinks. A bit of a party breaks out there. We all get told to knock it off and wait back at the venue in the hall. So we sit in the hall on the carpet for a few hours without drinks or dinner. The bride and groom arrive and enter the venue to an honor guard of floor hockey players wearing hockey jerseys and holding sticks above their heads like swords at a royal wedding. More Braveheart music, of course. The place emptied pretty quickly as people either left to go back to the pub or to the fast food place a bit further away. Our dinner was lemon squares and a can of Coke from a vending machine in the lobby. Funny stuff. Edit. I should mention that I got guilt-tripped into staying after the event to help clean up as I lived nearby and didn't have to work that day. It was the perfect ending. 16. Invite all their Facebook friends and expect 700 people and less than 100 show up. 17. When I was at a wedding of my parents' friends, the groom tried to throw a decently sized piece of cake at the bride, who moved out of the way. The cake ended up hitting my 76-year-old grandma. We all had a good laugh, but we were all cringing at the same time at the missed cake attempt. 18. The bride shows up almost 2 hours late to her wedding. Southern California in an open field with no water, no shade. She shows up and wants to get married in her yoga outfit. The groom shut it down, and when she refused to change her clothes, the groom decided to leave her looking stupid, and they never got married. Edit. I spoke with my uncle, and it turns out he had speculated that his fiancée was sleeping with her personal trainer. When she showed up in her yoga outfit, it was all he needed to call off the wedding. She ended up married to her personal trainer and divorced again. 19. The ceremony also included the name reveal. They changed their last name because they didn't want to be stuck to their heritage and didn't want anything to hold them back. They changed their name thinking they could erase their mountains of debt or at least hide from it. Turns out you can't live under two legal identities. 20. My mom and mother-in-law insisted on doing a stukier, a bit of theater often to mock the bride and groom by showing embarrassing pictures from their childhood. It was cringeworthy all by itself, but we explicitly asked them not to, and they went against our wishes. So when they performed their stukier, everyone was annoyed and embarrassed. When we finally made it through that ordeal, we wanted the party to resume, but my mother-in-law did another stukier, and we were about ready to unalive her. 21. It's not the groom and bride's fault, but the pastor was marrying them, and he talked about his marriage and his kids for 20 minutes. He was going for something to show what marriage would be like, but he was talking about how his daughter, Kelsey, learned to walk this way, and his other daughter's first words were this and that he and his wife make love throughout the house because that's what you do when in love, etc.